Senator Fischer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Administrator. Nice to see you again. I appreciated that we had the opportunity to meet and discuss some of the priorities that I have. I wanted to follow up on a discussion that we had regarding the staffing at Eppley Airfield in Omaha and a potential new requirement that airport staff exit lanes will become a responsibility of an airport instead of a TSA responsibility. Can you just briefly give us an idea, some further details on what those changes might be and how TSA, I guess, is going to be able to offer any assistance for those additional costs to airports?
Thank you, Senator, and I appreciated the conversation we had very much as well. Roughly a quarter of our airports have staffed exit lanes, and as we look at the expertise we build into a transportation security officer to do all this the screening work that we do in our screening checkpoints, our view is that that's not the best application of the skills that we provide to that workforce. But if the technology is not in place to prevent people from going into an exit lane and getting into a sterile area of an airport without screening, then it does need to be staffed. The question is by whom? And the budget proposal for about $94 million, if I recall correctly, would require airports to assume that responsibility. As I look at this and I see manned exit lanes in all those airports when I visit, and I also see other airports that have good technology solutions to this, in my opinion, a technology solution is the best way to get at this. And I recognize there is a funding requirement for that.
Do you have any ideas on how these airports are going to meet that requirement, or where they're going to get the revenue from?
Well, Senator, if the budget is passed as submitted, then as soon as FY23 budget is enacted, they would assume responsibility for exit lane staffing. So they would have to generate staff to do that because you won't have a technology solution in place quite that quickly. But then, I would expect that we would work very closely to try to develop some of those technology solutions. But the funding for that, as proposed in the budget, would come from the airports, not from the federal government at this point in time.
Okay. Senator Tester asked you about the pipeline security, cybersecurity on pipelines, and based on the directives that were put forward earlier, do you know, are you planning as TCA to look at any future security directives with regards to freight or passenger rail, to look at mass transit, to look at maritime? And if so, you're nodding yes. So if so, what's the timeline on that?
We are already working with the rail sector on cybersecurity requirements beyond what they already have. So they already need to report incidents, already need to have a point of contact and to do vulnerability assessments and have a contingency plan. We anticipate placing additional requirements, but the change, and we're also making this change on the pipeline sector, is to go to a performance-based regulation rather than a specific activity-based regulation. We feel that provides the owners and operators of these systems a great deal more flexibility to achieve the security outcomes that we want to achieve. And so far, the feedback from the industry has been very positive on that.
And do you have any specific timeline in mind on that, how long it would be?
Our timeline for rail will be over the next month or so. And then we will also look at the aviation system, both airports and airlines.
Okay. Anything in maritime?
The maritime will be a Coast Guard responsibility. We will work closely with the Coast Guard on that.
Okay. Thank you. During your nomination hearing in 2017, I asked you how the TSA can be more proactive in addressing surface transportation security. And usually TSA historically has spent just 2 to 3% of its budget on those surface transportation programs. What have you done since you've been in this role for 5 years? What steps have you taken to be able to bolster that surface transportation security?
Thanks, Senator. Well, first we reorganized, and we now have an assistant administrator for surface transportation security operations, and that puts it more on par with the domestic aviation security operations within our structure. We provided additional resources, and in response to Senator Tester's question, we also allocated some of the aviation inspectors to surface transportation compliance work. So there's a significant increase in overall headcount in surface. We have placed a lot of emphasis, too, on building relationships with the owners and operators of surface systems. And as you know, just in the pipeline sector, there are 3,000 pipelines in the country. We're doing our very best to work with the associations and then work with the most critical of those owners and operators in the country.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt. Thank you,